First action, or first item on the agenda is public hearing and action on the issuance of business licenses. First is for Ellsworth Casa Jalisco LLC DBA Casa Jalisco 205 High Street for New City Class C licensed liquor and victualler and New State Restaurant Class 1, 2, 3, and 4 malt, spiritus, and vinous liquor license. And I understand there is somebody here. Great. This is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing. Public hearing is open if anybody would like to comment. Are you commenting on the business licenses?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, we knew that. Thank you.
So, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. And 151 Main LLC DBA Riverside Cafe, 151 Main Street for a new City Class C license, victualler and liquor, and New State Restaurant Class 1, 2, 3, 4 malt, spiritus, and vinous liquor license. And there's someone. This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. If anybody wishes to comment. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 2, public hearing and action on Council Order Number 052301, the Ellsworth School Budget Resolutions for FY 2023. I'll ask Interim Superintendent Kane to.
Good evening. It is a beautiful evening outside. So the school department has met and considered the request, and the school committee reduced the custodial facilities lines. And so you have received, I believe last week, the changes, which would show under the expenses a reduction in the facilities line of $7,274.68. And so the total to the local appropriation that is a change is a reduction to $147,860.63, or 1.3%. That is the new total for the local appropriation of our request. And that is what we have. Questions?
Any questions, Council Caplan?
I was hoping you would be able to bring it down further. You know, I was comparing what other counties and areas do as far as their cost per pupil and what Ellsworth is doing. And for example, Ellsworth is currently only 36% proficient, 39% proficient in math and 57% proficient in reading, at a cost of $19,000 per student, state and local, and federal. And then looking at, for example, dollar for dollar for the same percentages as proficiency, Knox County spends $4,507 per student for the same result. Bangor spends the same amount per student, and the Mary Snow School, they are 64% proficient in math and 76 in reading and 64% in math and 76% in reading. The Cohen School in Bangor is 60% proficient in math and 81% proficient in reading. And the Fruit Street School is 85% proficient in math and 89% proficient in reading for the same dollar per dollar. And so I have to ask myself, why are we spending that amount, the same as Bangor, for a 39% proficient in math and a 56% proficient, or 57% proficient in reading? And I have to ask, what is the difference? Why are we not up there? And so if we're still greater than 50% of other schools, as far, Ellsworth is in the 50th, greater than the 50th percentile, as far as our proficiency, but we're in the top 25th percentile as far as our spending.
As your interim, I don't have all the answers to the reasons behind all of the different factors that go into that. I'm sure to know and understand that better moving forward. I will say that math has been identified as an issue for us, and the staff, as well as the curriculum director, have spent a better part of this year looking at a different math curriculum with better results, and they will hopefully be adopting that program to put in place tomorrow for the following year. So I've always known Ellsworth to be a district that identifies challenges that they have and look to trying to address them and move forward for improved student achievement. So I have no doubt of that. I don't know what the different rates of receivership of state aid are for the districts that you've mentioned. I don't have that in front of me. I know there are a variety of factors that go into the budgets of every district, and also the different student results that they have. That could be set around the state. So moving forward, again, I hope to understand more about what those different factors are. Sure.
Mr. Chair, may I add, as I pointed out at a budget workshop a couple weeks ago, when Councilor Kaplan first mentioned the $19,000 per pupil spending figure, that number is incorrect. Our spending per pupil in Ellsworth is around $15,000, very close to the state average for school districts throughout the state. I support what Superintendent Kane said about recognizing that our proficiency in certain areas is not, in all areas really, is not where we want it to be. We want to be among the very best school districts in the state. We're working hard to do that. We have things in place that are moving our district forward, and we are confident that we're going to show improvement year by year and get to where we want to be. But it's important to know that that $19,000 figure is not correct. And if you can look up online what schools, districts in Maine spend and what the average is, and like I said, we're very close to the average for the state of Maine.
Councilor Kaplan?
Do you think that if you cut out certain professional development trainings for example, they have an upcoming training on June 30th for Social Justice Conference, and on June 23rd, they have a training for using pronouns to support a safe and welcoming and inclusive environment. And these things are good at some levels, certainly the college level, for older students, and even to some degree the high school level. But my question is, I had asked a point-blank question whether gender studies was part of the curriculum, and I kind of got a roundabout answer that, well, you can opt out of that. But again, my question is it actually taught? And if so, at what grade level?
So I believe the question you asked was about critical race theory curriculum at that time?
There's all different names for it, right?
Right, sure.
CRT is clearly not taught in Ellsworth schools, I don't believe, by that name.
Correct.
But diversity, equity, inclusion, social emotional learning, whatever name you want to give it, is taught in Ellsworth schools, but at what levels, what grade levels? And I don't think that it's to the degree that it is at the college level. I wholeheartedly don't believe that, but I do believe that there's some biases, social biases that are taught within the school systems, and I want to know what grade does it start, and is that something that could be eliminated in favor of a better math and reading program.
So, Council Kaplan, can I just ask, is there in that point, or the question, do you have a specific related to the budget, or would that be appropriate for another meeting to, if you want to get into those issues, since this is about the budget?
Yes, if we
Okay.
eliminated those teaching programs and those teacher trainings under professional development, then the teachers could focus on more the proficiencies.
Okay.
Okay. So those
Thank you.
two trainings that you first mentioned, those, with those dates, those would be in this fiscal year budget. So that would not have an impact on next fiscal year budget. I'd have to look at those particular trainings and see what those, I think you said those were conferences that somebody requested to go to, perhaps?
Yeah,
So I'd
they
have to
are
look in-
through the Maine Educational Association, which, looking at the warrants, we spend a great deal on
Sure.
professional development to send people to the Maine Educational Association
Sure.
webinars and conferences.
So every teacher has a professional development plan related to their recertification that's approved by the certification division and is required to be met every 5 years, so that they can then renew through the state. So I would have to look and see if those are pieces that are towards that, because those are contractual obligations that the school has to support, depending on what they have in their plan, so.
Okay, and
So
as
I'm not,
far
and
as-
I'm just not sure what those particular ones are that you're referring to.
And as far as specific classes associated with gender studies,
I would have to ask the principals and the curriculum coordinator to look at that and get you the information on what specifically is covered at what grades.
So before I open the public hearing, I just, if you, earlier for the other public hearings, you're welcome, everybody's welcome to stay, but I also, you don't have to stay for the entirety of the meeting if you wanted to leave, so just wanted to make sure you knew that. All right, so I'm going to open the public hearing on Council Order Number 052301, the Ellsworth School Budget Resolution. This public hearing is open. If you'd like to comment, please come to the podium, state your name, where you're from, and make your comments.
I'm John Linehan, live here in Ellsworth. I have a letter I'd like to read to the entire council, and I have a copy for you when I'm done. Dear councilors, I am here today to discuss lawlessness regarding conflict of interest amongst our town councilors. On May 16th, I brought up an issue with Councilor Hanson that dates back to her failure to recuse herself from the vote on the rainbow-colored crosswalks. Also on that night, Councilor Steve O'Halloran correctly recused himself from voting on the budget based on his conflict of interest related to his wife working for the school systems. And then, Councilor Hamilton identified that his wife also worked for the school system, yet did not feel that he had a conflict of interest. This means that Councilor Hamilton can unilaterally determine whether he has a conflict and then be his own judge and jury of recusal. The appearance of impropriety is glaring, as akin to a fox in the henhouse. This appearance of impropriety violates sections 26056 of the Maine statutes. Today, I want to further that discussion by applying Chapter 40 of the Ellsworth Code of Ethics Conduct regarding the school board budget and personal financial interests related to the counselors whose significant others work for the school system. I would also like to shine a spotlight on how these counselors failed under 30 AMRS 26056, appearance of conflict, which states officials must also attempt to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest by disclosure or by abstention. As previously discussed at the May 16th meeting, under the Ellsworth Code of Ethics Conduct, city officials shall not use official authority or position to influence or interfere with or affect the results of any election. Moreover, at the record of the organization meeting held on November 9, 2020, the council adopted the rule that the council members must abstain from voting when there is a financial or personal conflict of interest. A personal financial conflict occurs when an official, and I quote, because of his interest, is placed in a situation of temptation to serve his own personal interest to the prejudice of the interests of those for whom the law authorized and required him to act. In all fairness to the public at large and to keep everyone honest, I feel the need to address that a few town council members, significant others, work for the school system. If I had not brought up this conflict of interest on May 16th, I feel there's more than a strong possibility the budget would have passed without the proper due diligence that should have been afforded to us taxpayers. Since the school budget includes increasing salaries, the councilors obviously profit by approving the budget since their household income benefits from the salary increase. In conclusion, starting immediately tonight, I strongly encourage council members to follow the Ellsworth codes and laws regarding conflicts of interest. As townsfolk, we should not have to take matters into our own hands by hiring attorneys and point the subject matter out after the fact. I ask you to read the codes of conflict and ethics and start abiding by them. I passionately yet respectfully submit this. John Linehan.
So please don't step down, because I have,
Pardon me?
please don't step down,
Yeah,
because
I
I have
have
some
copies,
questions.
I have copies of these
Well,
letters for everyone.
Please stay there for a second so I can have a
Sure.
conversation with you. First of all, a number of inaccuracies in your statement. I have, as I have done on every budget that I voted on with the school board, not just this year, prior to that vote, I disclosed the fact that my wife works for the school. You did not bring that to the attention of the council. I did that, and I've done that every year, not because you came here and walked through the doors and all of a sudden prompted me to disclose that. So I did that, which is very consistent with the requirements we have, is to make sure that the public and the fellow councilors are aware of the potential conflict so that everybody has the opportunity to engage in that. Not that I'm the arbiter. In fact, I'm not the arbiter. And if you recall that meeting, you will also recall that I turned to the council and I said, there's a process, and if any counselor feels different from my opinion and they want to raise that, that was the opportunity for the council to do that, so that they could have a discussion. That is within the realm of the counselors to say, we disagree with that individual counselor, we think there is a conflict. So I also took that step. Secondly, I want to ask you a question. Do you know how the salaries of teachers are conducted? Do you know what the process is?
No, I do not.
You do not, okay. So how do you know then it is a conflict?
Well, I'm assuming by the budget, if the salary increases and your spouses are working there, they would be part of the increase.
So your assumption would be incorrect, and so it probably would be good to gather some facts before you make kind of accusations that you're making. So let me educate you a little bit about how salaries are generated for contracted personnel in the school. That is done through a union negotiation. The unions negotiate the salaries and the salary structures. That is done with the participation of the school board and the union. That the council has no input into that. And ultimately, then the rates are set, the pay is set for that. So approving this budget has absolutely zero influence over what teachers get paid, including my wife. Secondly, you probably would be interested to know that when it comes to the budget does not ensure the continued employment of anybody within that budget. That is not within our scope. We approve top-line budget, and that means that the administration is responsible for the continued employment of my wife. So not only do I not have any kind of input or control over her salary, I have no input or control about whether she stays employed. And me voting on this would absolutely not be a conflict, as by the Code of Ethics and the state statutes, because I do not have a personal gain that's directly influenced by my vote. So you are incorrect on many points. And I just wanted to point that out, so thank you.
I'm
Would
glad you
anybody
did-
else like to
I'm glad you did, and I
comment?
just happen to disagree with your point of view on that. And
Councilman
I would
Miller.
like to
I'd like
point
to
out,
also add, since I wasn't here last week, my wife does.
would I allow to reply, or
And
you?
you can reply in 1 minute.
Well, let's reply to
I'm
this
done.
one right here
Let-
before the
just
next
let
one
me
goes.
finish.
I started when he
Mr.
had mine
Linehan,
like
let me
that.
finish.
Councilor Miller speaking. You can respond in a second.
Thank you.
Can he
My wife
reply to
does work for
you?
the school board, he will, he can.
I
I
ag-
didn't say he couldn't.
So-
Let's
let
not-
me
let's
finish.
not cloud it
Councilor
up here,
Miller,
guys.
Councilor Miller. I recognize Councilor Miller. Councilor Miller has the floor. As soon as he is done with the floor, I will go back to Mr. Linehan. That is the process, and that is what I'm going to follow. I recognized him before he said that he wanted to rebut, so I'm going to honor that, okay?
Let's not
Thank
cloud
you.
the waters.
Thank you. I'm going to honor that. Councilor Miller.
So my wife does work for the school board, and I have no conflict of interest with that, because I have no control over her salary either. And I have also consulted lawyers before the first year I became a city councilor. So it's not like this is all of a sudden coming out of nowhere. I have no conflict of interest, and according to the lawyers, I have no conflict of interest. So if you know more than the lawyer, please help me.
So, Mr. Lenahan, you may ask me the question or respond.
Sure, be glad to. I disagree with your comments. I disagree with your comments as well. I've had my attorney research this, and the data that I put in here I stand by them 100%. For example, November 9, 2020, council adopted a rule that council members must abstain from voting when there's a financial or personal conflict of interest. I see this as a personal and a financial conflict of interest between your spouses that are on there. So I disagree with you, and I respect your opinion on it like that, but I strongly disagree, and I believe that the school budget should be turned down, not voted on. You guys should be recusing yourself from this right here. I believe your benefit. Did your wife get an increase in pay?
The contract has not, she's receiving the same pay right now that she has. There have been no contract
Has she been
negotiations. So I'm not going to, first of all, I'm not going to debate my wife's salary with you, all
Well,
right?
you already told me.
Mr. Linehan,
You already told me it didn't
you can sit
benefit you.
down.
I'm asking
You
you a
can sit down.
question.
You're done.
You told me I can rebut.
You're done. You're not rebutting, now you're arguing. You're not rebutting, you're arguing. And I'm not going to engage in an argument with you.
Thank you for your disrespectful. I appreciate it.
I think you are disrespectful. If you want to speak, that's one thing, but if you want to argue, I'm not going to allow it.
I said I respectfully tell you that.
Thank you for recognizing. This is Abigail
You can
Miller.
put it
I'm on the school
respectfully in front
board.
of anything, and it's not respectful.
Well, keep talking.
I-
Somebody else is talking.
I just want to put out there that my husband is an elected official. I'm an elected official. We are not actually employed as in, I do not work at the school. We are given a stipend. That stipend is far, as you guys know, under what we put in per hours per year. And just like we were saying how it's not part of the school budget, basically, there's a statute that says the elected officials get paid this no matter if this budget passes or not. Same thing with the teachers. If you guys, the way the union contracts are written, hypothetically, if the budget were to fail, no, we still have to pay those union contracts, whether teacher, ed tech, bus drivers, whatever their union contract says, that's what we have to pay them. We'd have to find things other places. That's why it's not a conflict of interest, because you don't have line item veto. So it's, yeah, and we can't, once we've negotiated with a union, we can't go back and renegotiate until so many years. And it doesn't matter whether it's a teacher or whatever, but that's just how the system works. And I don't think anybody who voted for myself or Bob knew, didn't understand that when he ran, that I was already on the school board. And if he runs again this next time, I think people do know that I'm on the school board. And that we love each other a lot, but we're pretty independent thinkers, and we don't really unduly influence each other, even if we would want to. So I think we're good.
Question.
Ms. Kaplan.
Ms. Miller?
I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses on, so you guys are kind of really a big blur to me. I'm so sorry.
It's probably for the better. So, just to clarify, so you're on the school board and Bob is here. Do you think that there's any chance that, I know how many hours you put in for the school, above and beyond the school board. I mean, you're out there sewing, you're out there volunteering. I don't know how you do it. You must never sleep.
I don't know
But-
how you do it.
At the same time, do you think that him seeing your dedication to the school board could impact his opinion of the school board budget, knowing how hard you worked on it?
No, first of all, I'm not on the committee for budget.
Okay.
So that, which is a good thing to note. But no, I think he sees me work as a volunteer, I think, more than anything else. And that's something I did long before I was ever on the school board or anything before he was on city council. If anything, I would think that our positions have taken some of that time away from what we used to do. But no, just rolling, and you can't dismiss real life experience, rolling up your sleeves and just doing things. We just, we were blessed with one child, one wonderful child, but that gave us free time to do other things. So we just were always big volunteers for that reason.
So you personally see no conflict of interest on his part to vote on.
I cannot make my husband change his mind on dinner. More or less. Okay, or we're trying to buy a car right now. Like, you don't know. Like, that man, when he makes up his mind, he makes up his mind. He's respectful, he's loving, but he thinks completely on his own terms. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Gwen Clark. I guess I have a couple of questions. I've been kind of listening and watching this. And Mr. Hamilton, with all due respect, you do have a second income from the school coming into your household. And I think that's probably where, and just because you haven't done it in the past doesn't make it right this year, or even in the past. The other question that I have is, and it is a moral issue, how many lawsuits is the city and the school board going to accept and pay out on behalf of the taxpayers for things that you folks all decide to do?
Can you, Ms. Clark, can you be a little more specific? I don't understand what your reference is. What lawsuit for the council are you referring to?
Well, I don't know of any yet. But I do know, and I've spoken to a broker who does the insurance in California, and I do know that the city doesn't have quite the insurance coverage as the school board, but the school board has the best and the most expensive insurance coverage that money can buy.
Well, whoop they did.
Councilor Howland.
I guess I started this show by abstaining from voting from the city council. And I'd like to just tell you that I labored over that decision a long time. My wife worked for the city council. I sought legal advice. I asked many people. I got differing reviews. And finally, I decided that I needed to listen to my legal counsel. And the legal counsel said, whether there is a conflict or a perceived conflict, you're better off to stay out of it. That's why I recused myself from voting, because my wife works for the school department. I've heard everybody's ideas. I'm just telling you that me, myself, cannot vote for a budget that my wife is employed at. That's where this all come from.
Councilor Caplan.
Well, using the logic though, I mean, technically I should abstain because I have a student in the Ellsworth High School. And my approval or denial of a budget would directly impact the benefits to him and his scholarship abilities going down the line. I mean, anybody that's got a kid in school could go that route.
Councilor Howland.
I'd just say this, that your student or your son is not paid to go there, and my wife is paid to go there, and I don't want to be a part of it.
Is there a actual person who could clarify the absolute final thing on that, or is it all opinion from many different sources? Or, I mean, is there an authority on,
The charter.
yeah,
It defines it for individuals within the charter in terms of defining, disclosing conflicts, having the discussion, and ultimately making the decision based on that. It provides for the full council to weigh in on that. If there's a conflict that the full council says, wait a minute, that crosses the line. Those are the provisions. And while I certainly can respect when I'm not being accused of nefariously going about decision-making, I can respect people's difference of opinion on the matter. And every person here at this table has the right to make that decision. The facts of the matter are when a conflict is defined in terms of personal gain. Personal gain, in my opinion, is when you have the direct influence in terms of whether or not that financial reward is based on what you've done. And there is zero chance that I can impact my wife's salary, zero. We don't vote on that. So that is, for me, that's where I look at it and say, is there personal gain based on my vote? Not based on the fact that she's an employee, based on my vote, because that's what a conflict comes into play. And the fact of the matter is there is not. And I will remind everybody that ultimately this goes out to the voters. The voters make the decision about the budget. That's where it goes. This is a top-line vote that we make, and I believe that individuals who are keep making these accusations are motivated out of political goals in terms of trying to have individuals step out of the vote so that the vote might go in a direction that they wish. And I don't think that that's appropriate, and it's certainly not a reflection of why I am made the decision that I've made. Councilor Hanson.
I also think that the flip side of being cognizant about conflict of interest is that the reason that we were elected to sit up here was to make a vote. And every time you abstain, you're removing yourself from doing your duty of making a vote. So I do think it's important to pay attention to conflicts of interest when they actually exist. In this case, like you said, those teachers are going to get paid what they're paid no matter what decision we make. It's contractual, it has nothing to do with us. In fact, Councilor Kaplan and I, having children in the school system, our children are actually affected by the decisions we make. If anything, our conflict of interest is greater than your conflict of interest. But if you want to have people on your city council who are engaged, who are part of your community, whose families are a part of your community, you really have to draw a line someplace where it makes sense. We're going to care about the outcomes of all the things we vote on because we live in the community and we care about the community. The question is not whether you care about it or whether it's whether your vote changes the financial outcome.
Councilor
So
Kaplan.
I think it's our responsibility to vote.
Councilor Kaplan.
The only way I can see that it would pose a conflict of interest having a spouse that's employed is if the remaining councilors voted against a budget to the point in which a budget was cut, to such a degree that positions were cut. And so that could impact the decision to pass the vote or not.
Yeah, well, again, in terms of the budget, we don't know what positions are cut in terms of people. If a position is removed from a budget, we don't know that. That's not our decision. That's the administrative staff. So we don't have any control over who is cut, who isn't cut, what positions stay, what positions don't. We have that top line. So when we last Monday sent the budget back, that was sent back for the school board to decide where are they going to cut. That had no bearing on us. We don't have control of that. And when it comes back to us, we have no control. Neither do we see individual names in the information that's provided to us. So none of us would know who is going to be impacted by a reduction going forward. So that it would be hard-pressed to have that kind of influence. Councilor Helen.
I'd just like to say that I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for you or Mr. Miller. I am simply speaking for myself. I am not trying to push my idea onto you or onto Mr. Miller. It's me that I'm talking about, that I don't want to be a part of it. If you choose to be a part of it, that's your deal. And Mr. Miller, if you choose to be a part of it, that's your deal. Me, I find it a conflict of interest, and I choose not to be a part of it.
I respect that. Anybody else like to speak? Yeah.
My name is Melinda Workman. I don't think I've spoken before. I certainly watched a lot of meetings on my computer and phone of the school board and the city council. And I'm coming here today as a taxpayer. I don't know about all of you, but I cannot pay more in property taxes. I'm not willing to pay more for a failing school. I've asked several times, are there benchmarks or goals to be met? And what are those goals? I've asked questions about the COVID money and how it was spent. And I got a bunch of gobbledygook in spreadsheets. And I called the state of Maine, and you know what they told me? If you find something, let us know, and we'll investigate it. My husband and I both have full-time jobs. We've lived in Ellsworth for approximately 17 years, and our taxes have consistently gone up. And I feel like the quality of the school has gone down. And I'm here to ask all of you, as a taxpayer, to consider your decision. What's the limit? I know our health insurance has tripled, but I own a business in Bar Harbor with 4 other people. Our costs have skyrocketed, and we can't raise prices. You know, everyone shops for groceries, buys gas for their vehicles. We just can't bear any more in property taxes. So I ask you, and the school is the biggest piece of that. And when I saw the increase in the budget, I was like, how are we going to do it? How are we going to keep living in Ellsworth and pay these taxes? We have a rental and we have our residence in Ellsworth. And I just am asking you all to consider the taxpayers. We're professionals. We're not getting assistance. You know, we're paying our share, and we've reached a limit. How much more can we pay for a failing school? I don't think the problem's throwing more money at it. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Seeing none?
I have a question, I mean, you
Yeah.
can close, but.
I'll close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Counselor Hanson?
The next thing will be for us to discuss or us to vote?
Yes, discuss and,
Okay. My question was about, we have the budget that was sent to us last week, the one that was approved by the school board on the 12th, and then we have the new one that was approved by the school board on the 19th. When we make a motion to approve, can we only choose to approve the May 19th one, or could we choose to go back and approve the one that got turned down last week?
we will be voting on what's on the agenda. So it's the new budget that the school board has come forward on. They were asked to go back because the council rejected it. And so they were asked to go back and present a new budget. So the budget that's before us this evening, the new one that's been approved, is the one that has been voted on by the school board, is the official one. And that's the one that we have to vote on. And we will, even though we voted on parts of the last week, parts of the budget passed, we'll be voting on all sections of the budget this evening because it is a new budget, even though some pieces may be the same, but it's coming before us as a whole, and that's what we need to vote on.
Okay.
Councilor O'Halloran.
The comments that we had during the open forum, I feel it's right that I clear the record here and say that I am not going to vote on this budget, as probably everybody knows, but due to a perceived conflict of interest because my wife is employed at the school department.
Further discussion?
I just thought that they could have come up with more than $7,000 that they could have cut. You know, the taxpayers are suffering, gas is expensive, groceries are expensive, everyone's cost of living is going up, and there's only so much to go around, and the biggest portion of our city budget is the school. You know, I just think that they could have done more cuts somewhere.
Councilor Lyons.
I was kind of wondering, when you go to cut things, what brought the cuts to, like, the custodial services, and that was it? I mean, that was the only cut. It seems like over the last couple of years, they were some of the most important people in the school to keep the place clean and sanitized. And If somebody has.
Did you want a question?
An answer, yeah.
Thank you for that opportunity for that clarifying question. So we only cut supplies, which were additional pieces we had left in the budget in case there were additional expectations for cleaning in terms of COVID. So we're hopeful that those pieces will not be needed going forward. No cuts to personnel at all in that department. I agree, it would be
There
impossible
was-
moving forward with fewer personnel in that department.
There was nothing else in the whole budget that could be cut, nothing at all.
The area we cut was the decision of the full board in what could be cut and should be cut based on the amount of time that had already been spent on the budget and looking at the needs of the students in the system, and also things that teacher had asked for in terms of materials and in their orders, which we did not want to reduce.
So one of the things I would like to say as it relates to the school budget is the only part of the budget that goes out to the whole community to vote. And that's where the community has a chance to decide whether or not what's coming before them is what they want to support or not. And if you're on the prevailing side, you feel good about it, and if you're not, you're not happy about it. But that's 100% opportunity for the community to make a decision versus the 7 people sitting here and the 5 people on the school board. This is the opportunity, this is the only part of the city budget where the whole community gets to vote on it. And if you're passionate one way or the other, you should be out there advocating for the vote to go the way that you would like. That is a better representation ultimately of what the community wants than whether or not we approve top-line budget or whether the school board presents a budget coming forward out of their committee. The rest of the budget, yes, the council has input on that. We make decisions, and that's where hearing from individuals, that's the place where your voice is heard, and ultimately, though, the decision rests with us. So I just want to remind the community that I hope that everybody goes out and votes for this budget one way or the other, either in favor or against whatever appears on the referendum, because that's what true democracy is about, is having the voice of everyone, not trying to just reduce it down to a few. Council Lyons.
And one other thing, that last year, I believe Mark Blanchett had asked if any additional monies after the budget was approved was to come to the school, that they be used towards relief for the taxpayers and or to put towards the following year's budget. Was that sound
Go
right?
back to the taxpayers.
Yeah. So, is there any provision that would be accepted?
We'll be voting on that.
Oh.
That's the last article tonight we'll be voting on.
And it-
Okay.
Yeah, and we actually put into that article for this evening that we would return any money that, if any additional money comes back to the school department through a supplemental budget on behalf of by the state, we will return all of those funds to the city of Ellsworth for taxpayer relief.
Okay. So that's covered from what last year, that didn't happen, right?
It slipped my mind last year. I've mentioned it for years, and last
Okay.
year it just,
Thank you, Paul.
So before we move forward, I want to take an opportunity, Mr. Linehan, to say my apologies to you. When I feel that it's more than just a personal opinion and it's an attack, I feel strongly that I need to discuss that. And when you bring my wife into the situation, it further compounds it for me. So I think I reacted strongly, and I apologize for that. I certainly appreciate perspectives. That's part of this process. And so for that, I do apologize for how I reacted towards you.
And I accept that, and I appreciate that, and I assure you, I know they can be contentious items. I tried to present it in a positive way, in a respectful manner, passionate for what I am. I'm not in a hateful manner like that. I accept that, and if the way I worded it, the way I said it in any way offended you, I'll apologize to you for that. I just tried to stick to my issue, which is conflict of interest like that.
And
was
that I
my intent.
respect.
And
And-
if it went to personal, I apologize for that as well.
Well, that's how I heard it. That's not, you're on you, that's on me, and that's why I wanted to address that.
I've been the same place, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. Right, counselors. Counselor Kaplan.
I still didn't get an answer to the question about the gender studies. And if- I suppose I won't get an answer.
Those motions.
I can do it. Motion to approve state local EPS funding allocation for public education from kindergarten to grade 12 for Ellsworth schools for financial year 2023. The amount of that is $7,882,538.34.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions?
How are you voting?
Wait, you can weigh in for, against, or,
I'm asleep. 4.
for. Motion passes.
Motion to approve non-state funded school construction debt service for Ellsworth schools for financial year 2023. And the cost of that is $88,150.
Second.
Motion and seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. Motion passes.
Motion to approve the order for raising and appropriating additional local funds for Ellsworth schools for financial year 2023. The amount of that is $3,050,893.07.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Discussion. All those in favor? All those opposed? One opposed. Abstention? One abstention. Motion passes.
Move to approve the order approving total school operating budget for Ellsworth schools for financial year 2023. That amount is $25,030,659.50.
Second.
Motion and second.
Correction on the amount,
Yeah.
Oh, did I read?
57 cents rather than,
What did I say?
I thought you said 50 cents.
57 cents.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. All those in favor? All those opposed? One opposed. Abstention? One abstention.
And then is the next one motion to approve order to raise local funds for food service in the Ellsworth Public Schools for financial year 2023? Is that right, or am I
No,
missing
you're
this
missing
guy?
The next
Yeah.
one.
It doesn't matter which order.
Okay. Motion to approve adult education as required by Maine revised statutes. That is $287,753.38.
Second.
A motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. Motion passes.
Now move to approve order to raise local funds for food service in the Ellsworth Public Schools for financial year 2023 for the sum of $208,181.09.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
Is that like school lunch program gonna cover all kids, whether, not by income brackets?
also cover summertime food?
Seeing a yes. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? One abstention, motion passes.
Motion to approve the order to authorize expenditure of grants and other receipts for school department programs.
Second.
Motion and seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? One abstention, motion passes.
Then motion to approve the order authorizing disposition of additional state subsidy.
Second.
Do we need to say what that is?
Yes.
In the event that the Ellsworth School Department receives more state education subsidy than the amount included in its budget, the school board be authorized to use all of the additional state subsidy to decrease the local cost share expectation as defined in Title 20A, Section 15671A1B for local property taxpayers for funding public education as approved by the school board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Is that the one where it's returned to the taxpayers? Because that would have to be approved by the school board at that time, and if they don't approve it,
They've already approved it. In the budget, they approved that language already that's coming forward. So they've approved it, and then by us approving this resolution, it stays in place as the overall budget, and the language at that point can't be removed. Other discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? One abstention, motion passes. Thank you. Item 3, Council Order Number 052302, request of the city clerk to set the date for a special municipal school validation referendum.
Good evening, councilors. So now that the budget's approved, I would request that you set July 12th, 2022 as the referendum date for the school validation. That's 50 days from now, and we need a minimum of 45 to conduct absentee voting.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Thank you.
All those opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. Motion passes.
What's the reason for the abstention on setting the date?
I didn't know I had to clear that with you.
Do you have to state a reason if you're going to abstain?
I will abstain. Do I need to clear that?
Yeah, if you're abstaining, you have to, if there's a
I
conflict.
don't want anything to do with voting or anything to do with the school budget because my wife is employed with the school.
This is an election. This is not, the school budget has passed. We're done and beyond that now.
Again, I don't have
This
to
is,
clear my
this is
actions
now
with
an
you.
election.
So, any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, we just voted. I'm lost.
too late.
did the motion pass?
The motion passed.
Thank you.
So, we're done. We're going to move on
Okay.
from that item.
Can I just ask a quick question about it, though? It costs something to have this special election. Do we have to approve that?
No, because it has to happen, so that's what has to be, that's Manager Mosier's issue to deal with.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Item 4, I'll try to find my place again. Public hearing and action on the adoption of a continuing resolution to fund the city's school department and accounts in an amount sufficient to finance necessary expenses until a final budget resolve is in force, and this is an item that is because we are going into the new fiscal year without an approved budget, the school would not have the ability to fund any expenses without a continuing resolution that allows them to operate under basically the current configuration of the budget. So that will give them the ability to continue.
And that's assuming that the voters approve the budget.
Well, the continuing resolution takes us, because the vote is, let's say the vote happened prior to July 1st, and it was voted down. At that time, we would have to do a continuing resolution because there wouldn't be a budget. If the voters vote this down, that means that we have to, the continuing resolution is already in place, and they'll operate under that resolution until such time that a budget passes.
And without that, we can't operate the school.
Right, without a continuing resolution, they would have no means of operating the school, they would have no mechanism to make payments because they don't have an approved budget.
And then the school would shut down and all the students would be uneducated.
Right. And contracts wouldn't be paid,
Right.
staff wouldn't be paid, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what that is for. So it is a public hearing, I'll open the public hearing. Public hearing is open, if you'd like, anybody wishes to comment on that, may do so. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Turn it back to the council.
Move to adopt a continuing resolution to fund the city's school department and accounts in amount sufficient to finance necessary expenses until a final budget resolve is in force.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would request that if there are any abstentions on this vote, that they be fully explained beforehand.
If anybody would like to do so. Seeing none, then we will vote. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? One abstention, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's a failure of the city council to take half of the money that is spent in this city via the school department of everything that is spent, and to just hide under the blanket and do nothing with it. It's an abject and complete, total failure.
Do you want to go? Councilor Alvarado.
Thank you for your opinion.
You're welcome.
Item 5, Council Order Number 052303, request of the Public Works Director to accept funds from the main DHHS and to allow the city manager to sign the required documentation.
Good evening, councilors. On a positive note, I'm here to tell you that we get some free money. So I was here last month for the wastewater side of things and told you that coming forward we would have the drinking water side of things, and we are. I'm here tonight to ask to accept $457,000 in free grant / principal forgiveness money with no strings attached. This is except for these funds have to be used for engineering the Surrey Road water main replacement project, which is something that needs to be done. Anyone who lives off the Surrey Road on Mount View Hillside, oh my gosh, what's the third one? Westwood has known that we've had multiple water main breaks out there in the last few years. This project is looking at replacing those lines. And so this $157,000 would be used towards engineering to get that project engineered so that we can apply for additional grant funds through the program going forward. And then the other $300,000 is for design of a new water treatment plant. Our treatment plant is 30-some years old and doesn't sound that old, but it has a lot of failing mechanisms and safety concerns that need to be addressed. And so this is to start looking into what a new treatment plant would look like, what type of treatment we would want to go with, and take care of some of our, look at what some of our deficiencies are and what new programs we could implement that are new, and new technologies that have come out in the last 30 years.
Councilors.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the request of the Public Works Director to accept the $457,000 from the main DHHS and to allow the city manager to sign required documentation.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Councilor Caplan.
I'm just wondering, because You said it's free money, it's a grant.
Yep.
With no strings.
Correct.
Are there any requirements? Like,
Just that it be used for those 2 different projects. Other than that, there's no requirement for us to go forward with any of them. If we decide to engineer the Surrey Road project and we decide we have different, something else happens and we decide we need to go there instead of Surrey Road, then we can. It's just we have something that's been engineered
so
that
there's no
that's sitting on the shelf and we can get to it when we get to it.
There's no DEP regulations that they're attaching to this?
Nope.
Like what they did with the wastewater treatment plant of the green space that we lost, because they had to go over a wetland. They had to
That's part of a permitting thing. That's
Yeah, so
that's
there's none
not,
of those little
there's
hidden
no-
strings.
There's nothing other than those 2. They're tied to those 2 projects. That's it.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in, yeah. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
I'm getting lost in this. And item 6, council order number 052304, request of the Public Works Director to award the Mill Dam Culvert Repair Project to KJ Dugas Construction.
Good evening, counselors, again. So on April 26th, while we were out grading the Mill Dam Road, the city's grader tire went into a sinkhole at the Mill Dam culverts. It's a sinkhole essentially between the 2 culverts. This sinkhole has been an ongoing issue for a few years, but has now progressed to the point that a more permanent repair is required to maintain safety of the motoring public. This road is the access road to the Branch Lake Dam, the Mill Pond Beach area, and then there are a few residents that do have some lake homes off of private roads out that way. The day that the grader went through into the sinkhole, we called multiple local contractors to come out and give us some thoughts and estimates, or to look at it to give us some estimates. And only KJ Dugas was the only one that was able to submit a quote to us, just because of time constraints and everybody being busy. So I'm requesting, KJ Dugas has done a lot of good work for the city in the past. And so I'm requesting to go ahead with their quote.
Can you state the quote?
Oh, yes. The price for the quote is $84,200.
I would also add that without the work, the road is closed. The road is currently closed
Correct.
because it's unsafe for vehicular traffic.
Councilor O'Halloran.
What have you done in the past when you have previously discovered a sinkhole?
In this location, they were smaller. So what's happening, without getting in too much detail, but we'll get there. There's 2 culverts right here, right? Circular culverts. In the middle between them, with the water coming out of the dam, there's fieldstone that was laid into a wall, essentially. And what's happening is the water is getting in between the fieldstone and just eroding away the road, right? And so previously we'd fill it with some smaller stone and some fabric, put some gravel back over top of it and let it go. But it's continuing to do this, and it's continuing to take more and more and more gravel every year. And it has now progressed to, it's not just the first few feet, it's probably 10 feet or so back. And it's unstable, and it's gonna keep being unstable. The fix that we're talking about doing is taking out all those fieldstones that have made a wall, that have gaps in them, and they're not really a wall anymore. Digging down to the foundations, or it's basically sitting on ledge, digging down and replacing all the way around the 2 culverts with concrete and a concrete wing wall that to keep this, what they call scour, so the water doesn't keep scouring away at the dirt and pulling the road down with it. It's a fairly significant, large project. There's quite a bit of concrete involved, which is not something that just anyone can do. And so that's why there's a fairly high price tag on this. This is something, we do put money into the local roads budget every year, $200,000 or so for these type of emergency situations. That's exactly what this is there for. So.
Councilor O'Halloran.
So, I'm sorry.
No,
Did you say
Councilor,
Lyons?
nope, Councilor
okay.
O'Halloran, and then.
Okay. So this is an annual event that Public Works has to fight
Correct, and it has now gotten to the point where it's not something that we're just gonna keep patching. It's to the point where we need to make an investment in something.
And I'm only asking for this purpose. I've heard a lot about our road conditions.
Yep.
And, you know, if it's dire needs, that's fine, but I keep hearing about all of our roads, and that's a small traffic road,
Right.
if you will.
Yep.
So, but if you've patched all you can patch, then fair be it.
Yep, and the positive to, you know, hiring KJ Dugas, and it's something I think worth discussing is, you know, the highway department, they are very talented. I will give you credit, we are very lucky that we have a very good talented group. Is it something they could potentially do? Probably, but they also have a lot of other work because there is a lot of road, you know, throughout the city that needs to be done. There's grading that needs to be done, there's mowing that needs to be done, there's a lot of seasonal work that needs to be done before the traffic gets too busy here in town. There's just a lot of things they have to do, and this was an unexpected. It's going to take a significant amount of time and effort, would pretty much be our entire staff. And so to maximize our efforts, the idea is to hire this out and to continue to use our forces to do the things that we've already had planned and to continue on our spring. Spring is always our busiest time of year.
Councilor Lyons?
I was wondering, is it precast?
Nope, it'd be pour in place.
Poured in place.
And, you know, even if highway did do it, there would be significant concrete cost either way you did it. So, you know,
They already have somebody to do the pouring?
yeah, Dugas was gonna have, I don't know who they were gonna contract it out to, but.
Councilor Caplan?
So you said, yes, you do have people that can do it on staff, but that between the labor cost and the materials cost, that it would be a break even by sending it out?
Essentially, I mean, it's not gonna be break even, but it maximizes, right? So if I take my entire staff and we go and do this, we're not gonna be mowing lawns, we're not gonna be grading roads, we're not gonna be doing, we need to do some drainage stuff on Oak Street before the traffic picks up this summer. There's a lot of things that we already had on our list to do this spring. And so by, you know, if we pay to have this done, then we can continue to maximize, to continue to do our work as well as get this done.
So how long is it going to take to do this project?
I believe they told us a couple weeks.
Okay, and so there's no way we could put other projects off for 2 weeks in order to have our staff do this?
We could, but we're already getting extensive amount of calls about gravel roads that need to be graded. And, I'm trying to think what else we got. Gravel roads, drainage, lawn mowing.
I have digging that needs to be done.
Water department has some emergency type digging that needs to be done. It's just, it's a matter of this was an unexpected, right? And we already had plans to do other things, so.
Any other discussion?
I don't have my list in front of me.
I'm kind of torn, you know, on the one hand, it needs to be done, but we have the staff to do it, but there's other projects that we want to work on. So,
I think
you know, if you look at, do we spend the money and have it done quickly, or do we have our own staff do it and save $84,000?
Well, you won't save the whole amount, because no matter which way you do it, you're gonna buy the concrete, and the concrete's probably 25,000 plus of that dollar amount.
So we save $60,000.
Dugas is gonna have a lot better contacts for concrete than,
And that's the other thing, and like I said, I have great guys, and they can do it, they could do it, and I don't doubt them at all, but sometimes contractors are set up better to do these types of things than we are. They have different pumps than we would have to rent. We have different, they have bigger equipment that we don't have. They just have more of the necessities that we would have to rent, or so then by the time you do all these things, the costs start adding up, right?
And it comes with some sort of a warranty that if it fails, within what time frame?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it comes with a warranty, and the concrete head wall's not gonna fail.
Councilor Heller.
I just wanted to ask this simple question.
Yep.
If we knew about this problem and you were sitting in March planning your summer's work, would you have done this differently? In other words, would you have put your crew onto this and hired out something else? What would you have done?
You know, if I had the choice, honestly, you know, if I was sitting in March and knew this was something to go on, a couple things would have happened. One, I would have waited till probably September to do it, because by then this summer the people would have enjoyed the beach, the water levels would be down, and we wouldn't have to deal with the flow coming out of the dam. I probably still would have hired it out, just because we have 94 square miles of, you know, 100 and whatever miles of road to take care of. And these guys have a lot of their, what I'm gonna call maintenance duties, as well as, you know, when we get into the local roads budget, for every local road we are going to pave, these guys have to ditch and do all the cross culverts and the driveway culverts and everything before we can pave it. So there's a lot of planning and preparing into what we're gonna do every summer. And so when you throw something of 2 weeks plus long into the mix, it puts a major kink in the schedule.
So I'm hearing you would have done it the same way.
I think I would have, just I would have timed it differently, yep.
Councilor Kaplan, I think you make a great point, and one that I think we probably all wrestle with is in terms of we are inundated with, I'm sure we all are inundated with road issues in terms of my road is this, my road is that. We just have a lot of roads in this city, and it's not cheap to keep the maintenance up, and that's a reality. So every time something like this happens, we're sure to get something, well, what about my road? Why aren't we addressing this issue? And so part of it is looking at the overall budget of saying we only have so much, and to the earlier points in terms of if we were adding $84,000 to the budget in terms of next year, that increases the tax base. So for me, sometimes it's a matter of deferring to city staff to say, where are you going to use the resources that have been appropriated and stay within that budget based on priority of need and how the best to address that, and trying to sort that all out. And at the end of the day, sometimes it's a matter of we'd like this done, but and so I think it's a great point. It's kind of conflictual in terms of how do we do that, but at the end of the day, we're not increasing the budget. We're using the resources that have been allocated. We're just redeploying those dollars, which means something else isn't going to get done, and that will ultimately, somebody's not going to be happy about that. But if the road is closed, that kind of bumps the priorities. So.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, our primary function sitting here is that we answer to the taxpayer. You know, we answer to keep the taxes down, but at the same time, people want services. They want roads, they want schools.
They want the beach that's currently closed. I've got a lot of those calls.
So that road's closed completely right now? How do the people that live out on that point, do they get in from another way?
They can access through Boulder Way.
Clearwater?
But at the end of the day, people want services, but they also want to get the most services for the least amount of money.
Yeah.
And so that's the bugaboo. That's the balancing act, so.
And that's honestly, you know, I took that into consideration. Adam and I had some serious back and forth conversations. Do we do this? Do we hire it out? We didn't just willy-nilly say, hey, let's hire somebody and do it. We looked at it hard. We looked at our schedule, and we said, honestly, the most bang for the buck is to hire them and to keep highway going on all these other things that we already have in the works.
Can we hear from Adam on that?
That's fine.
No, I'm all set.
He still disagrees.
I'd like
Say
to,
if you agree or disagree.
I think Councilor Kaplan really has a question for you.
I just want to hear your point of view.
As far as, can we
The
do
whole
it?
project
Absolutely.
and-
It's timing.
Ain't that the truth? So if it wasn't timing, your staff could do it.
we could do it, yeah, absolutely.
It is what it is, I guess.
Thank you.
You just want us
Mr.
to
Chairman,
get up.
move to approve the request of the Public Works Director to award the Mill Dam Culvert Repair Project to KJ Dugas Construction for an amount of $84,200. Funding for this project to be from the Local Roads Capital Improvement Account 9090900-59001.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn the special session?
So moved.
All those in favor to adjourn the special session? All those opposed?
In favor.
Meeting's adjourned. We are going to take a 5-minute break between the work